Imagine a great sage, a master of scriptures and weapons, who was totally destined to guide the gods. But what if one single, stinging rejection sent him down a completely different path? What if it pushed him to lead the gods' greatest enemies, and in doing so, change the balance of the entire cosmos? Well, that's the incredible story we're diving into today, the story of Shukracharya. So that's the big question, isn't it? This is the central puzzle of Shukracharya. Here's a figure with immense, almost godlike knowledge and power, and yet his life takes a turn that sends shockwaves through the heavens. So why? Why would this brilliant sage turn his back on the gods to lead the Asuras? To really get it, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning. Okay, so to understand his choice, you first need to get a handle on just how complex this guy was. I mean, we're talking about someone who literally held the power of resurrection, the Sanjivani Vidya. He was considered a son of Lord Shiva himself, and he became the #1 rival to Indra, the king of all the gods. His wisdom wasn't just respected, it was feared. These are not the traits of some simple, one-dimensional villain. His journey doesn't start with a thirst for evil or some grand plan for villainy. No, it starts with extraordinary talent and a deep, burning sense of injustice that was sparked way back in his student days. This is where it all began to go wrong. Picture this. You're in the most prestigious ashram of the era, kind of like a divine university run by Rishi Angiras, and two students totally stand out. First, there's Brihaspati, the guru's son, and then there's the son of the great sage Vrigu, who at the time was known as Ushana. By all accounts, Ushana was the sharper mind. He just soaked up complex knowledge, warfare, medicine, scriptures, with an ease that nobody else could match. But he couldn't shake the feeling that his guru was playing favorites, giving his own son Brihaspati way more attention and praise. And that feeling of being sidelined? It all came to a head in the worst way possible. After he finished his studies, he went to the gods, totally confident in his unmatched knowledge, hoping to become their great preceptor. But Indra, the king of the gods, just shut him down, publicly. And the reason he gave wasn't about his skill or his wisdom. Nope, it was about his bloodline. His mother came from the Asura lineage. And that one comment, that public humiliation, based purely on his heritage, well, that changed everything. That was it. That was the turning point. Dishonored, rejected, Shukracharya turned his back on the heavens and walked straight towards Patal Lok, the realm of the Asuras. And down there, he finally got the respect he had been so cruelly denied. They praised his knowledge, they celebrated him, they begged him to be their leader. And he accepted, making a solemn vow: I will help all those who have been unjustly suppressed by the gods. And from that day forward, he wasn't Ushana anymore. He was Daityaguru Shukracharya, the preceptor of the demons. Okay, so he's the guru for the Asuras now. That's one thing. But winning a war against gods who are literally immortal, that's a whole other problem. Shukracharya knew he needed a game changer, something that could neutralize the gods' greatest weapon, their immortality. He set his sights on the one power that could completely rewrite the rules of the game, the Sanjivani Vidya. This was a legendary, almost mythical piece of knowledge held only by Lord Shiva. It was a secret mantra that could bring anyone back from the dead. With this power, the fact that the Asuras could die would no longer be a weakness. To get this power, he began one of the most intense acts of penance you can possibly imagine. For 1,000 years, he hung upside down from a tree, breathing in nothing but the smoke from a sacrificial fire. Indra, absolutely terrified of what would happen if he succeeded, threw everything at him: storms, illusions, you name it. He even sent his own daughter, Jayanti, to try and break his focus. But Shukracharya's will was unbreakable, and in the end, Lord Shiva himself appeared, so impressed by this unwavering devotion that he granted him the Sanjivani Vidya. So now, armed with this unbelievable knowledge, Shukracharya wasn't just a guru. He became a beacon of hope for the entire Asura race. He could completely turn the tide of any battle. He could stand on the battlefield and, with just a simple chant, bring back any fallen Asura warrior, from great kings like Bali and Hiranyakashipu to the regular soldiers, all of them back to life, ready to fight again. But you can't just wield that kind of immense power without some cosmic consequences. His success did not go unnoticed, and it led to a direct and frankly an incredibly dramatic showdown with the very god who gave him the power in the first place, Lord Shiva. In one huge war, the fighting was so intense, and Shukracharya was so good at his job that the actual cycle of life and death was thrown into total chaos. He was bringing Asuras back faster than they could even fall. The natural order was just breaking. And when Lord Shiva saw his sacred knowledge being used to create this much imbalance, he was furious and decided to step in personally. So Shiva confronts him, accusing him of misusing this sacred power. When Shukracharya argues back, Shiva's rage just boils over. And in one swift motion, he opens his mouth and swallows the sage whole. Just like that. Shukracharya was consumed, trapped in this timeless, lightless void inside a god, with what seemed like absolutely no way out. After what must have felt like an eternity, Shukracharya found well, let's call it an unconventional way out. And this is where the origin of his name becomes so important. He managed to find a path to emerge from Shiva's body through his lingam, the sacred symbol of Shiva's divine energy, and he came out in the form of Shiva's divine seed, or Shukra. And by emerging in this exact way, a kind of divine law was triggered. See, anyone born from a part of one's body is considered their child. So Shukracharya was reborn, and in that moment he became a son to the very god who had just tried to destroy him. This new status is what gave him the name Shukracharya, but it also gave him protection from Shiva's lingering anger. You see, a god cannot kill his own son.
But for all the wars and being swallowed by gods, his greatest test wasn't on a battlefield. It was a deep, ethical crisis, one that pitted his duty as a guru directly against his love as a father.
So here is the setup. The gods are desperate to get their hands on the Sanjivani Vidya, so they send Kach, the son of their own guru, Brihaspati, to pose as Shukracharya's student and steal the secret. The Asuras, of course, are super suspicious, so they keep killing Kach. But every single time, Shukracharya's daughter, Devayani, who had fallen in love with Kach, would beg her father to bring him back. Finally, the Asuras came up with what they thought was a foolproof plan. They killed Kach, burned his body, mixed the ashes into a drink, and then served it to an unsuspecting Shukracharya. Shukracharya was now in an absolutely impossible situation. Kach was inside his own body. If he used the mantra to revive him, Kach would literally burst out of his stomach, killing him instantly. But if he did nothing, Kach would be gone for good, and his daughter's heart would be completely broken. What do you do? I mean, really, what do you do when any choice you make leads to total disaster? The way he solves this is just pure genius. It's astounding. Facing certain death, he comes up with a plan. First, while Kach is still conscious inside him, he teaches him the entire Sanjivani Vidya. Then, he casts the spell. And just as expected, Kach is resurrected, bursting from Shukracharya's body, killing him. But then, and this is the brilliant part, Kach, now alive and holding the secret knowledge, does his duty as a student. He immediately uses the mantra to bring his master, Shukracharya, right back to life. In that single act, it really tells you everything you need to know about him. He sacrificed himself for his daughter's happiness, but had the incredible foresight to ensure his own survival. It's stories like this that explain why, even though he chose to be the preceptor of the demons, he is still held in such high regard, a figure of massive intellect, unwavering principles, and a deep, deep devotion to his chosen people. Which brings us all the way back to the main question. Who was he really? Was he an agent of chaos, a villain who upended the divine order just for selfish reasons? Or was he a righteous rebel, a brilliant mind who was pushed away by an unfair system, who then dedicated his life to fighting for the underdog? His story doesn't really give us an easy answer, and maybe that's the whole point. It challenges our simple ideas of good and evil, and it shows us that sometimes everything depends on which side of the story you happen to be on.